You are listening to Arcane Carolinas, an exploration of the Carolinas' folklore, legends, myths, and modern weird. Each episode, we examine the historical context of our topic and aim to preserve some of the stories that help make this part of the world such a fascinating place.
Hey y'all, welcome to the February-ish episode of Arcane Carolinas Case Files. This is the episode we were originally going to release in February, but our production schedule just ended up not really supporting that. Normally, in an episode of Arcane Carolinas Case Files, we interview a couple of teams of paranormal researchers, and then we tell you how to get in touch with them to have them look into anything that might be happening in your part of the Carolinas, if you're interested. This month, we're doing something a little bit different. We've got a horror writer from South Carolina who's here to talk to us about like monsters and cryptids and the books that he's written and things like that. We just thought y'all might be interested in what he's written. And then for the second part of the episode, we do a collaborative episode with another show that we really enjoy and we think y'all might enjoy also. So we'll have contact information for them in the show notes and in the Facebook posts, and we'll tag them on Twitter and all that good stuff. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to Arcane Carolinas Case Files. Today we are joined by author Bryce Gibson. How you doing, Bryce?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. Why don't you? So you're based out of South Carolina, right?
Yeah. I'm in South Carolina. I've actually lived in South Carolina my entire life. That all of my books are based in South Carolina, both in fictional and real places. And
your brand, so to speak, for your books, County Line Horror.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. What's the imprint about?
County Line Horror, I started officially launched in 2019. They're books that are appropriate for teen to adult, and like I said, they're all set in South Carolina. It kind of takes the common teen horror elements and mixes it in with a rural setting. So that's kind of the spin on what I'm doing, and that's the basis of that. I had four books from the original series out now, and then I started a spin-off series within County Line Horror called Killer Tech, and I have two books out in that one so far.
Great. I have my interest peaked on Killer Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're set around tech school in South Carolina, so they're all occupational based.
Cool.
The first one is auto mechanic based, and the second one is electrical engineering based, and I just finished writing the third one, which is culinary based. But yeah, they're all centered around a tech school, a fictional tech school in South Carolina. So
right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
I think that's really great.
I have plans at least for a couple more of Killer Tech books, so we'll see how those go.
That rules. I really, really like that.
Yeah, I grew up in Hendersonville, and so I think I knew a lot of people who went to Greenville Tech. And that's like immediately what I think of when I think of Killer Tech. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah, thank you.
Very cool. And you mentioned that you do a blend of sort of, you fictionalize stuff, obviously, but you also use some real locations. Are there any sort of folklore? What's your favorite South Carolina folklore or legend or myth or monster?
Well, off the top of my head, the Lizard Man. But everybody's familiar with the Lizard Man. And others closer to where I grew up. I'm from Ward, South Carolina, a really small town near Edgefield. There's Becky Cotton, a ghost in Edgefield.
Okay,
I'm familiar with that one since it's close to where I'm from. And each of my books, they touch on some local folklore and some folklore that I invented also. So.
That's how it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Most of it, particularly in my third book, it kind of expands on plant-related folklore, not particularly related to South Carolina or the South, but it kind of expands on plant-related folklore.
The Carolinas are home to they're one of if not the only, and Michael, you can go back and edit me if I'm completely wrong. Aren't like Venus flytraps native to the Carolinas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like flesh-eating plants.
Yeah, this is one of the few places in the world where they'll grow.
Right.
Oh, so some of the plants that I mentioned in there that I did a little bit of research on when I wrote that book is the vampire vine of, I think it's Nicaragua, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It's somewhere in South America.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this.
There's a tree of Madagascar. Is that right? It's
been
several years since I wrote that one, but those are a couple that I researched, and one called the Vegetable Man. I believe he was in.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't know that one at all.
Virginia, maybe West Virginia or Virginia. But for the resort, the dad on the island, he's really into all this plant-related folklore and urban legends. So he's traveled around like researching this stuff. But I created another legend that I based in Trenton, South Carolina, Silas Haru, but he's kind of plant-related also. But that one was just one I made up.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like the idea of Vegetable Man because I'm just hearing about this for the first time. Like if they ever made an action series out of Mr. Potato Head, Vegetable Man would be the villain. Like that would be like Skeletor to He-Man. Vegetable Man would be to Potato Head.
I should know the answer to that a little better, but I want to say it's Virginia or West Virginia with the Vegetable Man.
I'm going to Google it after this.
Yeah. What I get in mind is immediately like Swamp Thing, but evil. You know.
What if we're reading it completely wrong and they're actually good guys and they're just like, you need our nutrition, eat my arm, save yourself. Cut off my fingers and steam them.
I think what I think of it is what I think of it as is writer brain. Like where basically anytime you're writing a book, and my experience is that anytime I'm writing a book, I'm like a really deep expert on something weird that I had to research for that book for like 6 months, and then it's immediately forgotten. I'm like a lousy high school student. Like the second the test is over, it's gone.
Yeah, you know? That like I said, it was a few years ago when I wrote that one. So I guess that's why it's not that I don't remember that clearly, but it's been a few years. So, but going back to the Lizard Man, the Lizard Man was in 88, is that right? 88, 89?
Somewhere in there.
Something like that.
Yeah, I was like 10 or 11 at the time, and I remember being terrified of the whole thing. But, and going down around that area on the way to Myrtle Beach on vacation, and seeing all that. But the Lizard Man, he does play a part in my first County Line horror book, Perennials, also.
Cool.
He's not a major character, but he's there kind of as atmosphere, and he definitely plays a big part in the book though.
Well, cool. Well, where can people go online to get your books, check out your stuff? Where do you want people to go? How can they find you?
Well, I have a website, BryceGibsonWriter.com, and there's a link to the County Line Horror website there with the store with all of my books on there. And they're also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any of the bookstores.
So we will make sure that in the show notes for this episode of Arcane Carolinas Case Files that we have BryceGibsonWriter.com. So if you're listening to this and you want to check it out, check out the show notes and it'll be there. And we'll also, you're on Facebook and Instagram and all that?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
So we'll tag you when this episode goes live as well. So if you're listening to this and you want to check out Bryce and County Line Horror, go to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and you'll be able to find a post for this episode with his contact information tagged, and you can get his books and check it out.
And do you do any of the conventions in the region, like Con Carolinas or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. I didn't do any last year because of COVID. I'm not really sure about this year yet. I know I'm signed up for one in Alabama. And I was signed up for Days of the Dead in Atlanta in a few weeks, but I'm probably not going to that one.
Yeah.
But this year's kind of up in the air, but yeah, I do go to them. I go to a lot of little town festivals also. So hopefully I'm getting back into that this year,
Great.
Spring and summer.
Yeah. Once it's safe, then I'm all about going back to that life.
Definitely feel you on that. We were just talking about some plans that we have for the fall and trying to juggle priorities and like, okay, well, if this doesn't even happen, maybe we do this other thing. And it's just, it's tough. Everything's up in the air right now.
Yeah. And it's time now to be signing up for things. So not really knowing what to do. It's kind of,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to hit stop on the record and then I'll catch up on the technical details of when it's going to air and all that crap. Or you can leave them in. I don't care. Just trying to make Michael's job easier. So you're listening to Arcane Carolinas Case Files, where we are joined today with a very special guest, our first actually not in the Carolinas. We wanted to recognize the fact that we connect with people all across the world. And right now we are reaching out across time zones to myths behind the legends. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your host for Exploring the Myths Behind the Legends. My name is Chewy. Well, that's not really my name. My name is Jesus, or, it makes some people feel weird to say my name, Jesus or Jesus. So my whole entire life I've been called Chewy by my family, my friends. So that's what I go by as far as the purposes of everything, really, this podcast. And what we do in our podcast, I do have a co-host. Her name is Monica. Unfortunately, she would not be able to join us today because of work reasons. I was just letting Charlie know a little earlier. But she and I are working on this podcast here where we really focus on more than anything, movies and TV shows. We do explore some urban legends. This is going to be the case today for the purposes of today's episode. And it's awesome. I mean, we really enjoy what we do. We have we're developing a little following here and there, and it's been awesome. It's been really, really interesting. It's been a ride.
One of the things that I really appreciate about your podcast is that you take something from pop culture, like a movie or a TV show or whatever, and then you relate it to folklore and urban legends and myths and stuff. And I think that's so cool because we do a little bit of that, generally just goofing off, where we'll say, we'll say that's just like in episode 14, season 3 of the story. But you guys have this model where it's more in depth, and you do the research and you talk about and you relate the different things to each other. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, man. We appreciate that. That's kind of been developing over time because when we first started, we would do like a movie breakdown scene by scene, and people got back to us and they're like, "Hey, man, that's a little bit too much. Why don't you guys actually focus on like you said, maybe connecting the aspects of the movie that relate to real life, quote unquote, applications. For example, the episode that just came out yesterday. We did because our episodes air on Tuesdays, by the way, and we're recording this on a Wednesday. And we talked about the movie named Veronica. It's a movie from Spain, and it's about a typical possession type of movie with a Ouija board kind of thing. The actual case that inspired the movie, we talked about that. We connected some of those facts into the movie. Of course, like everything else that's based on a true story, it's loosely based.
Right.
They took a fair amount of liberties with that, but there is a case that inspired the movie, and we connected that. So that's kind of what we do. It's interesting to find stuff like, for example, today with the topic that we're going to talk about, I discovered some things that I had no idea were even a thing concerning this cryptid creature. Let's call it that for now.
Yeah, it's totally a cryptid. So for the listeners, we've been spitballing this conversation for a couple of months now, and we wanted to do something to illustrate. Michael, you usually put this much more eloquently than I do. The threads of commonality across regions with regards to certain creatures.
Yeah, they're just, there's certain kinds of phenomena, especially, I don't know if you want to call them monsters, but the idea of entities, whether it's, ghosts, vampires, whatever, that seem to have common threads, common descriptions across different cultures, and cultures that have not necessarily had a lot of cross-pollination between those cultures, which for me becomes pretty decent circumstantial evidence for there being something true, something real that people are experiencing behind that phenomenon.
So for this one, I was working with Chewy, and I was like, all right, well, you go pick some monsters or something, because we got a whole bunch of them here in the Carolinas. And you pick your favorite monster, and we'll try to line it up to one of our favorite monsters, and it'll be a real good time. So that's what we're doing today. I'm gonna let Chewy drive first. So tell us a little bit about what you picked.
Okay, so it was kind of a no-brainer for us because it's literally the most famous creature from our part of the woods. And I'm from Texas, by the way, South Texas. So when you think of San Antonio, I'm still about 3 or 4 hours south of that. So
cool.
I'm literally right on the border. And I picked the chupacabras because that's like my jam right there. Basically, because that's even our logo, by the way. When you look us up on the internet, you find our podcast. Our logo is a chupacabra, like tagging his our podcast initials into a wall with some graffiti, and that was tongue in cheek because again, it's part of our culture here. But going into the topic here, basically, like I said, I was doing some research and I found some interesting stuff. The first sightings of this creature happened in the distant time of 1995. It kind of hurts my bones to say that, but so it actually didn't happen here. It happened in the island of Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first part of the world in which this creature was mentioned. And what happened there is that farmers were finding their livestock not alive, basically.
Right.
So a bunch of the animals had wounds in their throats. They were reportedly drained of blood completely. And the reports of this occurrences started piling up little by little. And one of the journalists that was covering the story eventually gave the creature the nickname Chupacabra, which translates to the goat sucker.
Yep.
Because most of the victims of this creature happened to be goats. There were a few cows and sheep here and there, but most of them were goats for some reason. And then there was this lady named Madeline Tolentino, who was one of the first major interviews that was given about this phenomena. And she reported that when she was visiting her mother one time, she was looking at the window one night and she spotted a creature looking directly at her from out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And she described this creature as, and I quote, a human alien hybrid that had long limbs, no ears, and had a spiny back, so spikes protruding from its back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with large eyes. And she reported that she screamed like in fear, and this creature in turn ran away in fear from her scream. Yeah, it's that moment where they both kind of like scare each other, and
I love it.
So of course, the reports started piling up little by little, and eventually this creature found its way to other parts of the world. But incidentally, before we move on from this one specific instance, this lady was asked if she had seen any movies concerning aliens or monsters, and she mentioned, yeah, you know what? I saw the movie Species that came out a few months ago. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie before.
Mm-hmm. Long time ago.
Yeah. So in the movie, the creature that the species creature is
right.
looks very similar to this description that she gave, and she admitted, yeah, I like this movie, I loved it. So then people, of course, started connecting the movie to her account. Right. And I can see that because, me having a background in psychology, by the way, I studied I'm not a professional by any means, but
sure.
My undergrad degree is in psychology, and I studied some of that stuff. And yeah, the mind makes crazy associations. It's
absolutely
really interesting on how your mind can create false memories, and it's just a whole bunch of other topic. But yeah, so they determined, oh, this lady is just making associations. She's just she might. They're not calling her a liar in the sense that, yeah, she probably did see a creature. Maybe it was some sort of animal, like I don't know, a bear or something. I don't know what they have down there in Puerto Rico, but they're saying it very likely was not what she was thinking it was.
Right. We've explored that a little bit with different cryptids where people will describe the same phenomena differently depending on their particular influences. Like, it looked like a bat. No, it looked like a bird. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we have an episode that either will have just come out or will be about to come out about a phenomenon that, you know, at the end, we both think that it was people misidentifying a different kind of creature. You know, and I think that that's true a lot of times. People take in whatever they take in terms of sensory input, and then they contextualize it with what they already have a frame of reference for. And sometimes that leads to something that isn't exactly what they saw. I think that there's a good argument to be made about that with Mothman, for instance.
Yeah, of course. And like I was saying, it's just really interesting how your mind, you know, I guess it's kind of the same phenomena. I don't know if you guys, I mean, have some time, but just really, really quick in like a minute.
Go ahead, man.
Like the one of the developments, like when in children, they would show pictures to them, and basically the more human a drawing or a painting looked, the more drawn out they were to them. So it starts out even like in early childhood. Like if you show them a circle, it's like, okay, it's a circle. But if you start drawing like little circles and a smiley face, they kind of start making that connection more to a human face.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and you actually, it's interesting when you look at kids' art too, like as they get older, and the way they develop and how the art evolves. So that makes complete sense to me that they would. Yes, sorry, I'm just agreeing with you.
No, it's fine.
I don't know where I'm going with that, other than yes.
but I'm bringing that up because it connects to my next point here. Because of course, people started sketching this thing, and it started becoming more alien-like as more people started to give their accounts. And of course, people started spouting out all sorts of theories about it. It's an alien that came to Earth to harvest our DNA and clone us. Mm-hmm. Or no, it's a government experiment that's run amok from, you know, some secret government lab in the island. There's, I mean, of course, you know, all these things started popping up. But this is where it got weird for me, because this thing essentially became the Pokemon of cryptids. Right. Okay, in the sense that, I mean, I'm not too familiar with Pokemon, but the essence is that, from what I understand, you start with like a little baby creature, and then it keeps evolving into something. And a lot of times it ends up looking completely different from what it started, like, you know, in the beginning, right? So that's kind of what happened with this guy here, because he started looking like this alien thing with spikes protruding from his back and eyes. And then some people start, oh no, you know, he's got wings and he's got a long tail and he spits fire. So he became more dragon-like or something for some reason. He could. And
his middle name is Harold, and his favorite food is.
yeah. So of course, you know, oh yeah, I met him last night.
You know? Right, we had brunch on Tuesday. You know,
right.
Yeah, I had a couple of beers with him last night, but so as this phenomenon started spreading around the world, you know, it got as far as, you know, eventually it, of course, started being reported in the U.S., Florida mainly, because I guess it's closer to that part of the you know, the ocean where Puerto Rico's at. And then it branched out to Mexico, South America, even as far as places like Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Europe. And again, like the more distant it got from its origin, from its source, it got a little bit more different. And then it got even weirder because doing a full circle back in Central America, a few years down the road, maybe like in the early 2000s, a rancher found a weird body in his ranch, you know, and so he reported to authorities, and he's like, well, I don't know what this is. I mean, it's I've never seen anything like this before. So they took it to the lab in the university there. I think it's somewhere Nicaragua or Guatemala. I don't have my sources clearly on this, but it's somewhere down in Central America. Mm-hmm. And they ran DNA, and they concluded that it was a canine creature, right? And then a lady down here in Texas, close to me, actually, it's maybe about a 3-hour drive from where I'm at right now, in this little town named Cuero, Texas. She found a similar creature to that down there in Central America, the second one. And so she called them to her friends because she's some sort of scientist or something like that. And she was intrigued by this creature. And so she called on, because down here, and I don't know if it's the same way over there with you guys, but we have like a large expanse of lands down here that belong to like one person.
Well, everything's bigger in Texas, so
right.
Dude, like I mean, I drive for 10 hours and I'm still in Texas. So in any direction, basically. And anyways, so this lady, you know, she lived in a ranch, and then the next person a couple miles down the road in his ranch, a few months down the road, hey, I found a creature like the one you described to us earlier, right? And I shot it, so it's down here if you want to come see it, right? Because
Texas.
Yeah, we do have that in North Carolina, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But
that's the most North Carolina parallel we've drawn. So I didn't know what it was, so I shot it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, basically, that's we shoot first and ask questions later. So she goes to take a look at it, and she's like, "Wow, this is a really different animal from everything that I've ever seen before." So of course she had it stuffed and mounted on her wall, and because she has some sort of I don't want to call it a museum, but it's like a little room where she has like an exhibit of the animal. She's I think she's a hunter / scientist.
Okay.
And so she concluded that it's a chupacabras, right? Like on her own accord, she just determined that, oh, this thing's a chupacabras. That's what it is, because I've never seen a creature like this, and that's what it has to be. Right?
So I vaguely recall some of these stories. So I remember when it first like exploded onto the scene. It was on like the cover of Weekly World News, and you'd see it in the grocery store. And I specifically remember the kid, his name was Robbie. And Robbie told me at the lunch table in middle school, it was just like, have you heard about the goat sucker? And I was just like, the what? And that's how I learned about it. And I do remember like the little hairless, ratty looking dogs or hyenas or whatever, canines being recovered, and people saying like, oh, well, we think this is what was doing those things. So this is fascinating to hear like in depth, like, because I've taken this stuff in like casually, you know what I mean, like when it's in mass media, but I haven't actually like dug into the history of it. It's really interesting that there was 2 captured, we'll say, like in the same little area by neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like you said. I mean, and basically, she had scientists come over and take DNA samples from this creature, and they concluded that it was again a canine thing. So that's where I was going with this whole Pokemon angle, because it's like, dude, this thing starts like an alien reptilian thing, and then it developed wings and fire breathing powers, and then it can fly, and now it becomes a dog.
It likes medium buffalo wings, not hot.
It's one of those Pokemon where its last evolution is the least remarkable.
Yeah. It looks. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this dog that's like a native Mexican South American breed called a cholo.
No.
Yeah.
It's a hairless dog. Basically, it looks like a dog with no hair.
Okay.
Kind of like one of those
Googling
Sphinx cats, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some of them have hair, like really, like if they do, it's like really incredibly short hair. But anyways, my point is that there's a picture.
Yeah, look at that. I'm looking at them.
Yeah, so there's a picture of this of the one she has in her little exhibit room, and it looks literally like one of those cholo dogs. So one of the things that people were trying to claim was the possible explanation for all this is like, well, maybe somebody's breeding these dogs close to the area, and they escaped, and they became feral, and they started, slaughtering the animals down here. But my point is like, how do you connect the one creature? Like I mean, it's kind of like saying the Loch Ness monster. It looks kind of like a dinosaur, right? Like I guess in most of the accounts that I've heard, at least, it kind of looks like one of those long-necked dinosaurs.
Right. Like
yeah, and so then, but then next time you hear about him, he looks like a butterfly. So it's like, like to me, there's no really parallel. I mean, I don't know what to say, because it's like it changed species and looks, and it kind of like became a little weird. So
what is the line from Ghostbusters? It's like, choose the form of your destruction. maybe it's whoever's looking at it, they see whatever pops into their head.
Yeah. And then one last little conspiracy theory that came from all this is that, or that I was trying to develop, is that maybe this thing, when it kills you, you become like it. So it transforms you into itself, because again, like a whole bunch of these little creatures started popping up around that area where she's at. And so they found all these bodies, of these creatures. And they're saying, well, maybe like once it kills you, you become like it. And it's like, what? Like,
so
Is there simultaneously an epidemic of missing persons reports?
Apparently, I mean, I'm not too sure, man. It's just,
Once upon a time, there was a real mean hairless dog, and somebody decided to mess with it, and
yep,
it ate that thing that was messing with it, and then there was 2 mean hairless dogs.
Yeah, yeah. So it's some like a kind of weird parallel to vampirism, if you want to think about it that way, or werewolves, maybe, where if the werewolf bites you, you become a werewolf. But I mean, I don't know, because this whole thing it's a little like it started getting a little bit more disconnected towards the end, like of my research. And just to kind of close that whole thing off, like I said, all these bodies were again examined by experts from universities and labs, and they all concluded that they were dogs or coyotes.
Yeah,
based on their DNA samples. So I mean that's basically what I have to say about this thing. I'm looking out for other stuff. I mean, I did find a couple other things in pop culture. Apparently there is a children's book.
Of course there is.
So to me that was hilarious, because I mean, this thing is not friendly from all the accounts you've heard about it. But there's a children's book called, I believe, The Adventures of Charlie Chupacabra.
Wow.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, we're in the
Chupacabra.
Yeah, the Chupacabra creature looks like the one in our logo, like the green big-eyed reptilian creature, alien creature. And apparently he goes on a road trip with this kid named Charlie. So
I am upset that my life story has been put into a book and I did not get any.
Where are my royalties?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on Amazon. There it is. I love it. Oh, this is great. It's like looking out the window, all happy and waving and smiling real big.
Yeah, man. So I'm gonna try to track this book down and see what it's about, man, because it's just like, I don't know. I thought it was a little.
I'm into it. I like this.
Yeah, I didn't really know what the reasoning behind that was. Like, I mean, but it's cool. I mean, it's cool that they're kind of associating death and destruction with kids.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think they used it. Hold on a second. I just read what it is. Apparently, it's an allegory. Charlie doesn't know when he befriends a young human Lupe that together, with some leftover bacon quesadillas and a few cans of juice, they just might encounter more adventure than they can handle. Along the way, they meet strange people and terrifying danger. Their bravery will be put to the test. Thankfully, Charlie is a reassuring and winsome companion who never doubts that he and Lupe will return safely home. He's a polite, handsome, and unusually tall 10-year-old chupacabra. Yearning for adventure.
Polite and handsome. There's a lot going on in that back cover blurb.
Apparently, it is an allegory for the, North, South, and Central American, like it crosses all the Americas, the migration crisis. Apparently.
Oh, wow.
It is. Okay. And that's what it is. It's to like frame things in a way for kids that they could digest some stuff they might see in the news. This is cool. I think this is great.
Go ahead.
I kind of want to get it.
Like, not to be unnecessarily academic, although that is kind of my shtick. It's fascinating to me that something that I said at the beginning kind of feels like the product of people contextualizing something that they don't know, and thus creating the idea of the chupacabra, has itself become a tool for contextualizing something that is scary, by like providing a frame of reference that people can use to understand, something that might be a bigger concept than they're able to deal with otherwise. All
using a handsome, winsome, polite, unusually tall chupacabra that has a great name. It's a good name. I'm in.
Charlie. Actually, incidentally, our mascot doesn't have a name, so we might do a little survey here and there and ask for suggestions.
You totally should.
It's so funny.
You absolutely should. So, relating this to the Carolinas, we obviously have the Beast of Bladenboro.
Right.
We had some people on the December 2020 Arcane Carolinas case file episode share a story with us about a similar harm being brought to livestock by an unknown creature that they suspected was lurking in the woods near their home.
I was immediately thinking about them.
So there's this is again really cool to like, obviously chupacabras are their own thing, but it's cool to relate it to other stories directly. And we have the Beast of Bladenborough episode already, and it's basically plays out like Jaws but on land. And I think this sort of, I don't know where I'm going with this other than, it's definitely relatable.
Well, it shares so many specific features, the specific forms of violence against animals, the specific details of things like drained of blood, stuff like that.
Or the changing descriptions.
Even down to the story of somebody saw it and screamed, and it screamed, and they turned around and ran in opposite directions.
Or the wings. Some people said the Beast of Bladenborough had wings, and other people were like, no, it's just a big cat. And then other people were like, it's got wings and it's a ghost.
And and that prevailing theory that it's something that is has a mundane explanation, but is simply unusual, to being the extinct eastern cougar.
Right.
Well, the supposedly extinct eastern cougar. And it also shares a lot of features. Another thing that it made me think of was cattle mutilation beliefs, which were especially popular in the 70s and 80s, but they're still, a thing that gets reported now. And the way that those built very rapidly into, this is an alien visitation, and there's some sort of like mad science or, hostile science explanation behind this, of like aliens are showing up and are harvesting parts from cattle, or, getting DNA, or trying to understand life on Earth or whatever, trying to study the biology of life on Earth by going after creatures that probably won't describe them later and may not be as missed. And it turns out they are very much missed. So, that sort of idea, that cultural phenomenon of like, there's something out there or up there that's coming and taking stuff from us, and it's hostile and dangerous and violent, and we're scared of it. And if we spend too much time like not being guarded against it, then we run the risk of being turned into the thing that it is, which is very like werewolves and vampires, and a lot of cultural beliefs that are, in my opinion, largely an attempt to, to provide an explanation for the inexplicable horrors of being alive, he said, because he's the fun person in the room. Then
we all have a role to play, Michael.
That's right. But we often, like, historically have sort of framed them as, and if you're not careful, you'll get turned into it.
Yeah. That's how I wound up as a sack of potatoes. Eating too many friends. That was a weird period in my life.
I thought you were going to say that's how you got turned into an unusually tall chupacabra.
No, I don't know. It just seemed like the most random thing possible. And I was just like housing potato chips before we got on this. Because I got my sandwich down before we started. And then I was like, I need something else. And so I grabbed like a snack size bag of chips. I was like, I was not being careful. That was a bad joke. That was lame. Edit it. I don't care. Whatever. This is me.
I'll leave it on my end, because our episode on this, by the way, is coming out, I believe, this Tuesday or the following. I think it's this Tuesday, actually. So
cool.
I'll be working on editing. And you guys are going to be part of the Chupacabra episode, by the way, obviously. But the way that we're going to connect it is we're going to just real quick go over the Cholo dogs, their history, kind of.
Yeah.
Because since that's where the Chupacabra is at in its point of current evolution, that's what we're going to talk about. I mean, who knows what he's going to turn into tomorrow? I mean, tomorrow he might be a big cat. He might be a butterfly. Like, I mean, something.
You never know.
The worst Pokemon ever.
And at the very last part of our episode here, we're gonna do a song, because that's another thing that I do sometimes when Monica and I talk about a specific legend or creature. I usually come up with a jam for it, like, because I play music as a colleague. And we've done a couple of them. We've done a couple of legends. I mean, we did one from South America called El Silvón, which I did a song for. We did one from Mexico, Charro Negro, which is basically a ghost mariachi person.
Cool. And I like that.
Yeah, and we did another one for the Wendigo from Canada. So for all those, I've done little jams, and I'm planning on doing one for this guy also, for Chupacabra Charlie.
Cool.
Nice.
So I don't know if you guys are down for sharing your information, by the way, so that our people down here can found you, like as far as your website, your Facebook, stuff like that.
Sure, totally. Yeah, so we are. I'm Charlie Mushaw, co-host of Arcane Carolinas, a podcast dedicated to myths, legends, and modern weird out of North and South Carolina.
I'm Michael Williams, Michael G. Williams. I'm the award-winning author of a bunch of urban fantasy, horror, and science fiction, and I'm the other co-host of Arcane Carolinas.
We talk about lots of weird stuff. We generally go really deep into the history of things, dig up genealogical records, and try to root out where certain legends come from. And we actually found for example, there's a ghost story nearby, a couple hours away, and we found the real person that it's based on, just by digging through genealogical records, and was like, oh, well, that's the dude. And we found his family, and it was cool. So that's what we do. Ghosts, monsters, stuff that's just weird. That's us.
Stuff that's just unusual in the Carolinas.
Yeah, and so you can find us at www.arcanecarolinas.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find our podcast on, I always mess this up, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Libsyn, iHeartRadio.
Google Podcasts.
That's the one I always miss. So, Yep. So you can find us by searching Arcane Carolinas. We update maybe 2-3 times a month, except in the fall when we absolutely drop ridiculous amounts of content because it's the spooky season.
Exactly.
Yeah. But thanks so much for collaborating with us on this. The Beast of Bladenboro, I guess we'll do a nickel version of this for your listeners. The Beast of Bladenboro it was very much a Jaws-like story where some farmers reported like, oh, something's eating our animals. And hysteria set into the town, and people came from far and wide, where people coming to hunt the beast actually outnumbered the residents of the town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was this is in the early 1950s. There were 800 residents in the town. And on like the second night of people hunting for this monster, there were well over 1,000 armed strangers running around in unfamiliar woods looking for anything they could shoot.
And the descriptions ranged from it's a big cat to it's a cat with wings to it's a spirit to like it was madness, absolute madness. It was Beast of Bladenboro madness. And it went on for a while and then it recurred.
Yeah, it went on for 2 or 3 weeks in the first year that it happened. Then it totally disappeared. A year later, there were a couple of minor reports. And then, like I said, that was the early 1950s. Nothing until abruptly in the late 2000s, like 2008, 2009, there were hundreds of reports. And it was pretty thoroughly investigated then. Nobody could find anything. And it's been silent ever since.
And we actually had somebody send us a message that I really appreciated and had an angle that I hadn't thought. They said, okay, well, you looked at when it happened again. Did you look at what happened if it had happened before? Can you establish a cycle? Like, is this a creature that awakens every 30 years or, whatever, 40 years?
Like the liver guy from X-Files.
Exactly like the liver guy from X-Files. Ugh, that episode was horrible. Why do you do this to me? I like the X-Files, but you bring up the episodes that have like the deepest roots into my psyche. You're like that one time. And I'm like, God.
You did mention award-winning horror novelist, I believe.
Yeah. Once again, thank you guys for the opportunity. It's been wonderful. It's been awesome. I appreciate the opportunity. I regret that Monica was not here to join us today, but I mean, she sends her apologies for you guys.
Hey, we'll still, if you want to let us know where to send stuff, I'm happy to send you guys some swag to say thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking of getting some stuff made. I mean, I have some guitar picks, but because of all this thing, it's been a little difficult for us to find places to work with us as far as deliveries and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to probably do something online, and when I do that, I'll get a hold of you guys and send you a couple of tokens of appreciation. And just real quick, if I can share our info so people over there can track us down also.
Oh yeah, totally.
We are in Facebook under Exploring the Myths Behind the Legends. I know it's a little bit of a long name, but you can't miss our logo. It's a chupacabra green creature, spray painting a wall. Our web address is currently under a temporary domain. I'm planning on eventually getting an actual domain, but for now, it's under myths behind legends .mailchimpsites.com.
Very
We'll link to those in our show notes.
Yeah, we're gonna put
yeah, thanks. And on the website, you can find basically pretty much everything that we've covered. As far as you can find our picture gallery, which I just take pictures from the internet and edit them to make them look creepy. But eventually, I want to go out and explore and actually take pictures of like creepy places and stuff like that. And we have also our link to our podcast on Anchor, and you can see all the places that we're at. I mean, from the top of my head, I know we're on Spotify. I know we're on, I believe, Google Podcast also. There's a couple other ones in there that I can't remember right now. And there's also like links to external sources as far as if you want to read more into what, I mean, it's related to what we covered, but it's not about the same thing that we covered. So for example, on this one, we might actually put a link to the book, Right. Yeah, so it's related to the content, but it's not specifically what we talked about, and so that people have another perspective or like another source to look on and compare notes to what we did.
Totally. I like what you guys do. I think you do a really cool thing, and I hope people check you out.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You guys, I found you on Instagram, I believe, and I catch your episodes when I can on the way to work. I mean, I'm about 20-30 minute drive to work, just real quick. And I try to catch podcasts, and I like your episode on the Quakers. What is it? The Purgatory Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was pretty fun. And then the other one about the silver creature with the eyes.
Oh yeah, the third eye man.
That one.
Yeah,
that one was pretty fun too. So I'll make it a point to I mean, because I have other stuff that I listen to as well. So I kind of rotate podcasts every couple of weeks.
You mean you don't just listen to us? What are we doing here, Michael? Get your stuff. Let's go.
Yeah, but thank you guys very much. We appreciate the opportunity, and maybe hopefully down the road we can work on something together again.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Check them out. If you're listening to this on the Arcane Carolinas Case Files episode, big old thumbs up, stamp of approval.
Yeah,
listen to these people's show.
4.
You've been listening to Arcane Carolinas. Thanks for joining us. If you liked it, give us a rating, leave a comment. If you didn't like it, send us an email and tell us why. If you're not wrong, we'll try to fix it.
And if you're interested in award-winning speculative fiction, including science fiction, urban fantasy, and horror, find me, Michael G. Williams, at www.michaelgwilliamsbooks.com, and check out Falstaff Books at falstaffbooks.com.
If you'd like to pick up some Arcane Carolinas merch, look at behind-the-scenes info, pictures, videos, stuff like that, all the things that get cut, check out arcanecarolinas.com, where you can get access to our Patreon, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, all that in one place, including the merch store. Buy a shirt.
Clothe your body.
Drape your body in our wares.
Be our living billboards.